Hello everybody, welcome to Carol's Creative Escape. It's Monday, July 31st, and it's time for another fun video tutorial. My name's Carol Garrison with Carol's Creative Escape, and I have been with Stampin' Up for over 10 years and making cards for probably about 30 some years. My goal or my objective with making my cards is to simply share joy one card at a time, and that can either be by sending it off to a lucky recipient who receives a beautiful homemade card from someone, or helping somebody out there watching one of my videos figure out that they are creative and that they can make cards. Some people just don't think they are capable of doing it, and I hope to create simple cards that add a lot of pop, but are very simple to make. So those are my two goals with my videos here. I am so glad that you joined me tonight. I know we are all very, very busy, and I do appreciate that you take time out of your schedule to either watch me live or later on replay. It does mean a lot to me, and I appreciate the support. I hope you've all had a really good week. We had a gorgeous weekend here in Minnesota. It's been, hi Judy, thanks for joining in. It's been extremely hot here lately, like everywhere else in the country, and we actually had what I consider to be perfect temps, low 80s, a little bit of a breeze and sunshine. It was gorgeous. So we did get to spend some time outside doing some things. I also managed to get my craft space pretty much clear, except for a couple things that I got to figure out where I'm going to hang them. So I'm feeling really good about that. Hopefully I'll be able to put up a video to share with you what my space looks like now that it's kind of all put together again. I also got to spend a little bit of time with my granddaughter, so that's always fun. And then spent some time with my mother-in-law as well. So it was a good weekend, and I am here today to start showing you how to make, I'm just calling it a Fun Fold designer series paper type card. One of my other goals is to encourage people to use their designer series paper to make really fancy cards without having to do a lot of die cutting or excessive stamping or coloring or anything like that, because for some people that's their style. I do make some fancy cards, but I also want to be able to share with you some of those easier to make cards that have a lot of pop, and that's what I'm hoping to do here tonight. So I am using the beautiful balloons. I'm actually just using the sentiment from that, and then I'm using the Countryside, what's it called? Countryside Inn designer series paper to make a card. So let me get my cameras all flipped around and I'll show you what I'm working on here. Just a moment. All right. Hopefully I've got things lined up pretty good here. I've got little marks on my desk that are supposed to help me do that, but one never knows for sure where stuff is going to end up. And I just realized I move around a lot in my chair when I'm talking. I tried not to mess with my hair tonight, but then it turned into rocking back and forth in my chair. I guess there's still a little nervous energy, even though I've been doing this for a while. All right, so like I said, I'm using the Happy Birthday Sentiment from the Beautiful Balloons stamp set. This is in the annual catalog, and it is on, I didn't pull up the page number for some reason for this one, but it's on page 15, so it's right at the beginning of the catalog. You've seen me use this one a couple times, especially with that pretty designer series paper. So it's just a great birthday stamp. Lots of good dies that go with that, and I learned recently that this little die, I used it because I thought it was kind of cool to add texture to the card or also weave ribbon through it. But if you also do this right on the edge of your card or on the edge of a strip of paper, you can create fringe. So I'll have to show you. It would kind of look like, I don't know, I just never noticed that in the catalog, but it would kind of look like that fringe right there. How clever, huh? It pays to look at the pictures in our catalogs because you can learn some new things from that. And then the paper that I'm featuring is on page 129 in the catalog, and it's all shades of blue. It's a Countryside Inn. And this actually coordinates with Balmy Blue, Boho Blue, Misty Moonlight, and Night of Navy paper. So that is really all I need to show you in our catalog tonight. So the card that I want to, well, actually what I am going to do is show you the designer paper because I think it helps to see this sometimes. It's all shades of blue. Basic white is the background. You've got this pattern kind of with an all over floral, and on the back, it's just the dark blue, kind of good masculine type paper on the back side. This pattern has a little bit of the light blue flowers. Again, you could do a masculine card, I think. Then we've got a floral pattern that has little fox figures on it. And then there's this all over pattern. It probably goes like this. And then it's got kind of a striped pattern on the back. Then we've got this floral pattern with bunnies all over it. And again, a striped pattern here. I was thinking if you make dollhouses, this would make good wallpaper. So would this one, good wallpaper for a dollhouse. If you're into that, I'm not, but it might do that. And then we've got this pattern, which is kind of trees with some floral on it. And then the back side is just rows and rows and rows of little flowers. And then finally, we've got this all over pattern with the birds, kind of a dove, I suppose, on it. And on the back side, it's just solid blue stripes. So a very versatile paper, because you could really make feminine or masculine cards out of that quite easily. And just change up your card bases to go with the theme of your card. So anyhow, the card I want to show you tonight is just sort of a fun fold card. This particular card, I've shared this paper with you in the past, but this is the remarkably, it's the one that looks like all sorts of paper piecing was done on it. And I want to say it's remarkably, masterfully made is what the name is of this one. And so I've just taken a couple different pieces and created the card. It's actually 3 layers of designer series paper with 1 stamp on it. I wasn't sure how all of this was going to go together, but I really did like how it looks once it was all layered up. And this card has a card base of Melon Mambo on it. So let me show you what you need to make this card. And again, mine's going to be all in shades of blue. I am using the boho blue, and it may be the first time I've actually used this blue in one of my videos. This is one of the new colors that came in with the catalog this year. So I got 5.5 by 7.5, and it's scored at 4 1/4. And then I have a piece of Night of Navy, which is 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, scored at 1 inch. And then I've got another piece of boho blue, and this one measures 2.5 by 3.5 inches. And then I have a piece of, so you can tell I'm going to be kind of layering some stuff here, a piece of Night of Navy. This one measures actually 1 3/4 by 2. And this piece and the basic white layer that's going to go on top of it, you would change up the dimensions of that simply based on what your sentiment size is. Then, of course, I've got the standard 4 by 5 1/4 piece of basic white for the inside of my card. The designer series paper used in this card measures 3 by 5 1/4, 3 by 4, and this last piece is 2 1/4 by 3 1/4. And then I finally am ending with a piece of basic white. This one happens to measure 1.5 by 1 3/4 inches. So the first thing that I want to do is start by stamping my sentiment. I have a cat joining me here for a few minutes. This would be Zelda. She has no concept of space, but hopefully won't stay up here too long. I think she is going to take all my, you know what? We're going to get down. Okay, sorry about that. Anyhow, I'm going to stamp my sentiment first. I always like to do those types of stamping so I can set stuff aside and let it dry. I'm finding with some of the darker colors it just takes a little bit longer. So if I set it aside, I don't run into any risk of smearing it. So there's my happy birthday sentiment stamped in Night of Navy. And I'm going to let that dry. I will get my Simply chamois out here and wipe off my stamped image. That keeps me from setting down parts of my card on that. Now you'll notice on this one that the stamp is a little bit pink. That's simply because I used Melon Mambo the first time I used this, and it stained the photopolymer. That does not affect the stamping at all, so don't worry about that if you see that happening to your stamps. It's just part of stamping. I actually kind of like when mine's stained because it helps me see it better when I'm going to go stamp the image. So I don't let that get to me at all. All right, I can set that aside. The other thing, if you're new to stamping and you notice that I pulled out this is actually one of our piercing mats. And I use this when I'm using my photopolymer stamps because it gives me a little bit of foam. If you've been around stamping for a while, you will know. I want to just share with you one of my stamps that is a cling mount stamp. So we have two different types of stamps. One are the photopolymer stamps, and those are just a clear plastic that mount right to a block. And then we've got our cling stamps, which are these orange stamps. And if you look at these two stamps, you'll see that this one has foam on it, and this one is just the photopolymer. So when I stamp with this one, it's already got the foam built in. I don't need to add anything, and I can get a good image just stamping on a normal surface. When I'm stamping with my photopolymers, it helps a great deal to put some kind of foam. I like the piercing mat just because it's a good size underneath my cardstock so that when I stamp it, I'm getting that foam. It just gives you a crisper image when you do that. So if you ever wonder why people are doing that, that's why. And these are available very inexpensively through Stampin' Up. So let's go ahead and get started on the card assembly. So the first thing we're going to do is fold the card base along the score line, and I am going to burnish my edges. And then I like to kind of come in and build up my layers and then start assembling my card. So I am going to take this piece, which is the flap. I'm going to fold it along that score line, and I am going to burnish that down so that I get a good crisp fold on it. I want to have it open and close very nicely. Now with this piece, it goes on the card here, so you want to make sure that when you add your designer series paper, it's going the right direction for being adhered on this side and in this direction. Some patterns it's probably going to matter more than in other patterns. So I'm just going to go ahead and set up my seal. Again, a light touch with a kind of a quick check mark is all you need to do to keep that from gumming up. And I'm going to put this on and center it in my space here. And just a quick tip that I learned from Jackie Bullheis is, and I wish I would have known it sooner, instead of trying to get edges and stuff even looking all four sides, if you look at this corner and this corner, kind of your diagonals, or that corner, if they're the same, then you're pretty much going to be lined up all the way around. So just something to keep your mind on. Hey Pam, thanks for joining me. Terry, I saw you were out there too. Hello. And then before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and adhere this piece. And the only reason I'm doing that is I actually need to put my basic white on top to cover that strip up on the inside of the card. And honestly, I'm afraid if I don't do it right now, I'm going to forget to do it, and then I'll have issues with the card. So that is where we're going to go. So again, this, I'm just eyeballing it, but centering it top to bottom and right along the edge. And there we go. And so I'm just going to make sure that's adhered well. And that forms that first layer of the flap. As long as I've got the card opened up, I'm going to go ahead and adhere my basic white layer. And that, again, I'm just going to center on the inside of the card, kind of looking diagonal again on my corners to make sure they're lined up pretty well. And those look even to me, so I'm going to go ahead and adhere that. That finishes the inside of the card. So let's work on creating our next set of layers. I'm going to take this piece of Designer Series paper and I'm going to attach it to that. It's also my first time using this paper. This is one of those papers that I think I like, but I'm not 100% positive. So I was anxious to kind of try it and see how it would turn out in a card. And I do like it. I have a feeling I'm going to use more of the non-animal sides to the paper, but that's all right. You may find that you're going to use the animal sides to the paper. That's what's fun about stamping, is we can each make our own creative touch to our cards. All right, so now I'm just using a little bit of adhesive to adhere it. And here comes Zelda again. To adhere it. She's a little kitten. She's maybe 3 months old. I don't like the centering on that. And she just kind of does whatever she wants, and anything I have in my house is a toy. In fact, I found my paper snips on the floor when I got home from work this afternoon. So clearly they had spent some time downstairs and got onto my craft table. As long as they don't lose them, I guess. And I did have the cover on them. Ay, ay, ay. All right. Now I'm just going to put adhesive on the back of this Designer Series paper. And you may see that I'm not putting adhesive on the side. I've really cut back the amount that I use with this. It's so sticky that I don't feel like I need to do all of the sides. I kind of do the edge and then kind of put a diagonal piece in there. And again, I'm putting this on the narrow flap that I created, and I'm just looking at my opposite corners here to make sure they're fairly even, and adding it to the front of the card. Last but not least on this one, actually it's almost last, I'm going to add, yeah, Xena, we don't need to see your tail in the video, or Zelda, I mean. We're going to add adhesive to this layer. Do any of you guys have cats that like to help you stamp? I know a couple of my followers do. I just kind of let them go. All right, then I'm just going to center this inside this box. So I've got a little border kind of going around with that layer. And then on my original card, I had this down towards the bottom, but that's because I had that floral image on top. On this card, I think I'm going to center it in the middle of that space. I'm not using any dimensionals because this card is already kind of thick. And I've mentioned previously, I do like to make sure that my cards can be mailed using just a single postage stamp whenever possible. So I do keep an eye on how thick and bulky my cards get to be. All right, now this card, because it is all tones of blue, I really felt like I needed to pop it up just a little bit with some bling. And so I'm going to add a couple of rhinestones. And the tool I'm using here to pick these up, it's just a, I'm going to slide that one down just a little bit. It's called a Take Your Pick tool. And it's a great tool because it's got kind of like a piercer on it. And I can pull that out, and it's got a little spatula. Some people use that to pick their things up. I actually like to use the green putty end of things to pick up my rhinestones and put them back down. For me, that works best. And then there are some interchangeable pieces. This one can kind of give you a stitch line. There's one that will, it has a brush so you can brush out the little pieces. And then in the annual catalog, there's also two new tools. One is like an X-Acto knife kind of thing. And the third tool totally escapes my brain. I'm not sure what it is, but let me find out real quick. It's a very handy thing. I actually have two of them because I found myself switching out things so often that it was nice to be able to kind of leave things set up a little bit. It's going to be on page 150, I believe. Nope, it's not. All right, well, anyhow, There's other fun tools that go with it, and I will try to have it better prepared next week when I show the tool. Anyway, take your pick tool. Now for this card, I just added a bow that I knocked off just now. I've just added a ribbon on this particular card to dress it up, but I kind of thought it might be fun to add a ribbon to hold the card closed, and then you could untie the ribbon. So I've got the Night of Navy ribbon. It is in the annual catalog, and I'm going to kind of create a belly band of sorts with the ribbon. And so the first thing I'm going to do is figure out where I want it, and I'm going to have it centered on here. So I'm just going to add a small dab of adhesive along the back here in the center, and that'll just help hold my ribbon in place as I get it wrapped around here, because I'm going to actually have my knot be on the left side. So if I'm lucky, I got that ribbon lined up, and I'm just kind of eyeballing the amount that I have here, and I'm going to go ahead and make a little knot and hopefully create a nice little bow here that'll go up and down along my card. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm pretty happy with that though. I'm not going to argue that one too much. And so let me grab my snips here and just cut my ribbon at an angle. And I have a feeling this card is going to be a little bulkier just because of that ribbon and the fact I have multiple layers and stuff. So this might be the kind of card that you want to hand deliver to somebody or include with a package. And I know I'm covering up the sentiment, but when they untie it to open the card, that's going to be exposed. It's just another layer on the card. And now we've got a really fun card here in front of us. The other thing that I think I'm going to do, just because we're kind of working all in blues with this paper, is I'm going to go ahead and create a coordinating envelope to go with this. Just got to grab one out of my packet, and actually I've got a piece here that I think is going to be the perfect width. Yep. So usually I go about 1 3/4, 2 inches on my designer series paper when I'm covering up my envelopes. Actually 2 1/4 is the width, so I actually try to go 2 1/2. I kind of lied. So this one probably isn't going to be deep enough because I want to be able to trim it, and I'm afraid, you know what, nope, it is going to work. I'm just going to have to be careful with my placement of it. I'm trying to use my designer series paper up, but at the same time I don't want to be wasting it, you know? So I'm just going to take some of the mono liquid glue. I'm trying to think ahead and decorate the outside of my envelopes more than I have been. And it can be done with a stamp. It can be done with designer series paper. Either way works. Just make sure you're leaving the primary address section of the card open so that you're not creating issues for your postal carrier. And once you glue that piece of designer series paper on, all you need to do is follow along the edge of your envelope flap. And you have a coordinated envelope. It's just that simple. And if you're not quite down to your envelope flap, just go back and you can snip off the extra. And now you have your coordinated, ooh, I don't like how that looks. You can tell right where I ended up my cutting. Okay, there we go. Now you've got a coordinated envelope to go with your card. I hope you liked this card tonight and that it's inspired you to try to make one like it too. If you do, please be sure to post it in the comments. And I thank you so much for joining me tonight, and we'll see you all again next week for Make It Monday. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.